Hey everyone, welcome back. This is our third video in a series of videos all about modals of certainty. And in this video, we're going to focus on what modals of certainty look like in the present and the future. So our learning outcomes today are differentiating modals of certainty from other types of modals, but also differentiating strong and weak modals from each other, and identifying whether the modal is used in the present or the future. All right, so here is our chart that shows us the modals of certainty in the present and the future. Now, I've used the main verb be to make this chart. So when it says will be is the main verb here, just as is going to be and must be. So just like all modals, modals don't take tense the way that be and do during the perfect forms and in questions. So how can you know what the time frame of the sentence is? Well, you have to look around the sentence to look for time words or expressions or other evidence that helps you understand when the action is happening. So these modals are listed by their degree of certainty, with the more certain modals at the top of the chart and the less certain modals at the bottom of the chart. Another point to mention here is about should. This type of should doesn't tell us advice. This type of should tells us about our expectation for the future. And so, for example, if I knew this weekend that I needed to go to the store and someone says, are you going to be at the store? Maybe I'll see you there. And I say, oh, I should be there. I have a plan to go. And that plan puts it higher than 50%. So I'm going to say 80 to 90%. It's my plan to go. I should be there. Okay, so this is a different kind of should. All right. Also, notice that an interesting difference between can't be, couldn't be. Notice that there's nothing in the positive there, in the affirmative. And that's because when you use could be in the affirmative, it's actually weaker. So just be aware that when we use can't and couldn't be as a modal of certainty, they don't have the same meaning when I put them in the affirmative or positive version. All right, so here are some examples. Which ones are present and which ones are future? You know, remember what I said, you have to look for evidence around the sentence to figure this out. So take a minute, pause the video if you need to. All right, let's talk about it. So the first one, there will be future outbreaks because we don't have a vaccine. This one's a little easier because you're already used to the word will. So this one is future. This one here, scientists, doctors, nurses, and pharmacists must be working very long hours. Oh, I should probably, here's my modal here. So my modal here is must be working. So this one is actually focusing on the present because we're talking about right now. We see be and ing, which make us think of present progressive. And we have our must there as well. Here, may be possible. Now remember, possible isn't part of the verb here. The verb is may be. So let's see, it may be possible to transmit the virus by touching an object. So this is talking about present. This can happen right now, right? All right, then we have, we might be able to return to campus in the fall. Might be able to. I see in the fall, right? I have this time expression here, and right now, oh, it's summer right now. This is the future. Okay, so this is expressing a modal of certainty about the future. And then we have talking with someone outdoors instead of indoors could be safer. So could be safer is our modal of certainty. And I know you might be thinking, oh, could, past, but it is not. This is talking about the certainty of this being safe. And so this is talking about the present. Okay, so remember what we said before about can and could. Can as possibility talks about general possibilities. Could refers to particular situations. So here I'm talking about the situation of talking with someone versus something much more general, just talking. All right. So I put on this chart, I mapped out the percentage of likelihood of these modals. So I want you to understand that our dividing line here at 50%, this is where we have our affirmative versus our negative. So we can have strong affirmative, will, it's going to happen, right? So also is going to. Let me just go ahead and write that here too. Must is a little less certain. Should, a little less certain. I would actually put these two at about the same. And then we have our 50%, may, might, could. And then once we go negative, now we see our negatives come out. Must not. But what happens if we say may not, might not? I would put those about here too. All right, at about 50%. Might not. But couldn't? Couldn't is over here. Okay. Couldn't and can't are over here. All right, so let's imagine that this guy is sitting in a cafe indoors. Let's also assume that he has COVID, but he doesn't know it yet. Now, there are other people in the cafe, but they are not sharing his table. They are sitting at the next table. So this guy is kind of covering his mouth a little bit, but also kind of not. He's not wearing a mask. So, what might happen here? So choose a modal that expresses the certainty that you have about what will happen. All right, here's what I wrote. So I have two different ways of talking about this. His coughing might infect other people. That's the active voice. But maybe I want to make it passive voice. I could say other people might be infected by his coughing. So the difference here between active and passive is that our passive voice has be and adds an ed to a regular verb to make it a past participle. I want to point out that this is past participle, and if you have an irregular verb, that will look different than just adding an ed. Okay. I wouldn't use a strong modal here because the transmission rate for this situation is not 100%. There's other factors. I mean, is he far enough away? Is he covering his mouth enough? It's not 100% certain. All right, so now let's imagine that he's on an airplane and he's super close to all these people. So choose a modal that expresses the certainty that you have about what will happen. And if you're not sure if he will definitely infect other people, let me take you to this website that I've included on this slide to show you a graphic. All right, so that was something, huh? Now you're wondering what's going to happen when you're on an airplane next. All right, so here's how I'm going to write this. His coughing will infect other people, so I chose to use will. If I want to use passive, I'm going to say other people will be infected by his coughing. So that's all part of it, okay? So I wonder if some of you might have written something like, his coughing must infect other people. So if you did, I understand why you did, but he must infect other people doesn't make us think of certainty. Instead, it makes us think of obligation, as if we're saying he needs to infect other people. But why does the sentence make us think that? Well, it's because we're talking about a specific situation. So think of what we said before about can and could. Can being used for general possibility, could for particular situation, the possibility of something happening. So the same happens here with must. So this man in this area, when we don't have any additional information to show that we're talking about a specific situation, must takes on a meaning of obligation. And that's really not what we want to say. He doesn't need to infect other people. We're trying to express certainty here. All right, so keep that in mind, that we don't want to say his coughing must infect other people, but if we add a little more context, we can understand what we're trying to say. So something like this is much better. His coughing must infect other people because he never covers his mouth. Now we're adding a little bit of explanation, a little more about this particular situation to show that we mean it as a modal of certainty. All right, up next we're going to take a look at modals of certainty in the past. How do they look? Do they look any different? I'll see you then.